Hello, welcome, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, your boy, Kaz, here back with Episode 2, Part 3 of Kaz's Fighter Jet Roundtable Tournament. So, without missing a beat, let's go ahead and get zoomed on into the Watchtower to see who we have for you all today. And here we are with our first challenger for today, the KF Ava Gen 2 FJR. You remember how last episode I said that people have been remixing their older designs to put them into the tournament and with some new weapons and new life? Well, that's exactly what that FJR means. This design, sent in by Kerbal Fury, has been changed to accommodate just that. So, let's go ahead and take a look at what we got here. First things first, I did notice this was something rather peculiar. This has an air-to-ground radar nose cone. I don't really know if that's going to make a big difference in whether or not the missiles are easily able to lock on and track, but I guess we'll find out, or maybe it has some other benefit that I'm not aware of. In addition to that, luckily we're not going to have too much of a rave seizure today, although there is a little bit of Z-fighting there between parts. Things that are fairly easily fixed just by using the offset tool and moving things either up or down by the smallest little smidge. Just things that work as far as presentation. So, continuing on. This is a very light aircraft in that it only qualifies for the minimum 6 missiles. It has 2 20mm Vulcan cannons. As far as I can see, this aircraft could potentially get up to 3 of those. But, I guess it saves a little on weight, only having the 2 there. And in addition, uses standard AIM-9 sidewinders and standard AIM 120 AMRAAMs. So, it also has this interesting double intake thing, which it does add a little bit of redundancy. Those parts don't tend to have a lot of HP. But they also have the side benefit of making the intakes look rather amazing. Moving on to the rear, we can see that this puppy is powered through the skies by 3 Saturn engines. If you haven't noticed already, there's a bit of a trend when it comes to lighter aircraft and what tends to power them. This is a trijet. I happen to know that this plane is something of a mother figure to a whole line of different aircraft that were created by Kerbal Fury. So let's see if the mama of them all can stand up to what we have in the end, the enemy corner for today. And in this corner, we have the GAC-7B, sent in by none other than Panzernoff. Again, you might recognize that name from an earlier episode. It's always good to have people fighting different people, but with such a niche group of individuals, we're bound to see some doubles. Not that I really care so much. Either way, let's go ahead and take a look at this aircraft, shall we? Again, this is an older design that has been kind of revamped for FJR from older seasons of other aircraft tournaments. So these are also using 2 30mm Mausers, which are probably my favorite of the 30mm fixed cannons there, other than the Gal, which is very mean. Which, honestly, we haven't seen anybody use, interestingly enough. I will say that it's much more interesting to see a mix of different 30mm being used. And people are going for the 2 rather than the Gao, which, honestly, these don't seem to have as much kick as the Gao does, which is why you can only have 1. Either way, it's a nice benefit. So let's look at these missiles. I'm gonna bet that they are... Yep, the bog standard AIM-9 sidewinders. And it has 6 of them, as this is also a very light fighter. Now, here's where things get a little strange. Let's come along back here. Oh god! Look at that. Well, it's kind of hard to see because we have the brakes on, but just for a moment, we'll turn the brakes off. at this. We have a single Saturn engine, but along with that, we have 6 Tiger engines. None of them are clipped. All of them are sitting quite nicely out the side, providing a little bit more thrust. Each one of those engines does provide additional thrust while also having an afterburning feature. Not really sure why one would want this many engines when they don't offer that much thrust, and they don't have too much HP. 3 of them, as you can see, basically equals 1 Saturn. At least in the hit points department. I don't know if 3 of them equals slightly more or less thrust than the Saturn, but knowing how powerful the Saturn is, I'm going to go ahead and assume that, I'm going to assume that it's 3 of those probably doesn't equal a Saturn. I guess you could argue a case for redundancy, but the main concern there is going to be whether or not it has enough air intakes. We do see some just kind of being cheeky and hiding away in some different areas, so this does have lots of air intakes. Hopefully it won't spin out. With that kind of thrust package in the back, we could be looking at some spinning going on, and we all know about spinning. So, with the Challengers being introduced, let's go ahead, get these planes started, head over to the watchtower, and get going for round 1. So here we are back at the watchtower. As you can tell, we have started the engines on the planes and they are ready and raring to go. Kaz had to take a little bit of a bathroom break somewhere out in the desert. Luckily, there's no shortage of area for him to take care of business, as it were. I've heard that he prefers the hangars back there, as it's just kind of a short walk across the runway. Either way, let's go ahead and get these craft into the air, and we'll see what kind of nonsense they can get up to for round 1. So the GAC-7Bs are taking off first, it looks like, just barely, although the KF-Avas are heading up pretty good there. I'm going to go ahead and be calling these the Avas and the GACs, just because it's easier that way. So one thing I'm noticing immediately, the GACs have a very low cruising altitude there, getting dangerously close to the terrain even as the competition is starting. The Avas, however, are much higher, which gives them more energy. However, that doesn't necessarily mean when you have all that power. These AIM-9s are now coming in. The GACs keeping up the pressure quite heavily with those missiles. Are we going to see a hit for the missiles? Let's see. Getting closer. They're coming in. And no, just barely a miss. All right, well, let's go ahead and get in here, because we don't want to miss any of the dogfight action. So there we can see that thrust package going on. Kind of reminds me of the Millennium Foul. Whoosh, that's going to hurt. And just like that, the Ava gets taken out. There's still one left, but with that much missile power, well, who knows? AIM-9 being fired. Oh, and an absolutely glancing blow. Now the GACs are on the tail with those 30 mils, lighting it up, and cleaves off those engines, leaving it nothing but a shattered, broken husk of its former self. And with amazing lightning efficiency that is starting to become more commonplace, we see the end of round 1. Let's go ahead and get into round 2. So here we are for the start of round 2, and it looks like between round 1 and 2, Kaz has found his way back to the watchtower. Let's hope he washed his hands. Anyway, let's go ahead and get these aircraft into the air. So, little PSA while everything is flying. This competition thrives on aircraft just like these sent in by viewers like you. If you have a design you'd like to submit with the mod pack, or even know anybody who is interested in these kinds of competitions, maybe send them to the Discord, or send them a link to the channel. Let them see what's going on. Maybe they'll want to get involved. This tournament cannot continue without support from folks like yourselves. It'd be kind of boring for me to have to throw my own aircraft into the mix. Anyway, with that, looks like the planes are getting started. Once again, the GACs are low, firing their AIM-9s at long distance. This time we have an AIM-120 being fired from the Avas. Interesting. More AIM-9s, lots of AIM-9s being fired from the GACs. Let's go ahead and take it from the Ava's perspective here. Although those Saturn engines do light up like the freaking sun, you can see that they have an enormous thrust-to-weight ratio when in a craft like this, when it's very light. You can see right now that this craft is pushing 6 thrust-to-weight, which I believe I mentioned before. Saturns can get you a lot of performance, but they do have their downsides, and a huge heat signature is one of those, as well as having less HP points than just about anything else. Oh, and we've seen our first GAC 7 get wiped out by the Avas. Could the Avas possibly pull this around and make this a round 3? Well, who knows? Stranger things have happened. Although, one thing is for sure, those GAC 7s are deadly when it gets into gun range, especially because of those dual 30mm. And just as I say that, the GAC lights up one of the Avas, and a missile, probably a friendly fire missile, takes out, or at least heavily cripples, one of the Avas. This is certainly much more interesting than round 1. I say, as the other aircraft gets machine gunned over there. Let's go ahead and take a look at that one. I can't believe I missed it, barely skimming above the ground. That, speaking of... Alright, well, there goes another one to the ground. So now it's a 1v1. And as we can see, the GACs have an enormously effective turning circle. Gimbals on those Saturn engines fighting to try and keep this thing upright. Although it doesn't have a lot of control authority left, it's going to be a bit squirrely. Spinning as it continues to climb higher and higher into the sky. Let's go back to the GAC. GAC has also taken some damage. It is operating on effectively 50% of its engines. They're now up at the 5-kilometer mark. This is actually where Saturns begin to lose some of their effectiveness. Not that I think it's going to play that much of a role in this. Ava continuing to climb due to the pressure from the GAC. This is far beyond gun range. Looks like the GAC has finally spiraled itself. Actually, I'm not sure what the GAC is. Well, rather, I don't know what the Ava is doing. I'm getting these names mixed up, which is strange. They're very different from one another. I don't know how I keep doing that. You know how I said that I didn't like fights that last 20 minutes? I really hope this doesn't turn into one of those. Because 20 minutes of this would not be very fun. Although, it looks like we might not have to worry about that. Ava's getting awfully close to the ground. It is indeed losing altitude. 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You got my hopes up. Wait a minute. Nope, it still got fuel. This one I heard it. Maybe it's having issues with thrust there. Let's see, 240 some odd seconds. They're almost tied on fuel. Actually, that's not true at all. The GAC has significantly less. The only way it has the same is if it's not an afterburner mode. And we see by the shadow, it's getting close to the ground. Is it done? Oh, and pile drives into the ground. Well, that was 100% far more entertaining than I expected it to be. Especially after the amazing performance the GACs gave in Part 1. But I think that settles it. I think it's safe to say that the GAC is going to be our winner for this episode. Well, I've been Kaz. Thank you so much for joining me for this. Again, another short one. But, hey, bite-sized chunks, am I right? Anyway, I hope you'll all join me for Episode 2, Part 4, which will be coming up next. And after that, it'll be time for the semis and finals. So, to totally borrow a quote from an old-school KSP YouTuber, I've been Kaz. Stay shiny, everybody.